Do you dream of turning challenging clients into passionate promoters?
Yes!
Nailed it. Are you eager to keep your pipeline brimming with high-quality prospects?
Yes!
Again, do you want a steady stream of referrals that keeps your business growing?
Yes!
Damn straight. If you answered yes to any of these questions, you're in for a treat with our next speaker, Dave Rosenberg. Dave isn't just a sales trainer. He's a former naval flight officer, a pilot, and a martial artist with black belts in 2 disciplines. He brings the precision of an aviator and the discipline of a martial artist to the world of sales. Dave once transformed a modest $10,000 opportunity into a whopping $150,000 deal, outmaneuvering competitors with ease. He's built sales teams from the ground up, and as a sales manager straight out of the Navy, he tripled his company's revenues in just 2 years. Today, Dave is here to unveil his secret to sustained sales success. Please join me in welcoming the extraordinary Dave Rosenberg.
Reporting as ordered. Oh. I'm frustrated, a little bit anxious, and a whole lot ticked off. It's April 2008. My company, Delta V Communication, had just sold and installed a brand new, state-of-the-art, voice-over IP phone system for a large and really important client. The problem is, we just can't seem to get their chief salesperson, a guy named Bob, really, it's always Bob. We can't seem to make him happy. And Bob happens to be married to the president of the company. Yeah, this is a problem. To make matters worse, this was a referral from a colleague of mine I'd known for 10 years who had sent over $100,000 of business my way in that time period. I couldn't afford to screw this up. Unfortunately, things were going south real fast, and I had to figure it out. My time in the Navy, though, it gave me a tool to use, and I pulled it out of my tool bag. It's called a debrief. See, every single mission we fly, we first start with a brief where we talk about the processes and procedures necessary to affect the mission. And as you probably recall from earlier when I talked about the accountability triangle, processes fall into the mechanics leg of the accountability triangle. The debrief, though, is the tool we use to incrementally improve those processes and procedures. We would go back and talk about the mission from the moment we started the engines to the moment we shut them down and everything in between. And we would talk about 3 different things. We talk about what went right. As we heard earlier, it's really critical we celebrate our successes because that's how we get more of them. We want to reinforce those behaviors. We talked about what could have been improved. That's the opportunity to increment and improve. And then we would talk about what we missed. And we're looking for 2 different outcomes there. There's either a systemic problem, that's a problem with the procedures. And that's actually really good news because systemic problems allow you to then increment and get better. You find the holes in the procedures. Or we can look for a personnel issue. That means we followed the procedure, or the procedure was correct rather, but we didn't actually follow them. And then we have to ask why. So I started the debrief. Now, this particular debrief was just me. I was a salesman on this one, so I'm talking to myself. Yeah, I know. At any rate, I started at the sales process. Now, you might think this wasn't a sales issue because we sold. We won the deal. Clearly, it's an operations issue. But a lot of times problems occur in a preceding process. So you really want to go back to the beginning. So that was sales. So I looked at bonding and rapport. That's the first step in any sales process. By the way, I know we have all sales professionals here. How many of you actually have a sales process? Raise your hand if you do. And those of you who do, fantastic. And for those of you who didn't raise your hand, it's not too late to start. Just write down what you think the steps of the sales are. This way you can start going through them in order. You never forget a step. And when you start debriefing them, you'll improve that process. Right? Well, bonding and rapport is the first step in any important sales process because it allows us to connect. Right? Sales are about people. Right? People do business with people. We've heard that time and time again. But if we don't connect, there's no trust. And if there's no trust, you're not going to tell me what's really going on in your business. And if I don't know what's really going on, how can I solve your problem? Well, I learned a lot during that process, and I think that went pretty well. So I moved on to what I call reconnaissance. Some people call it the discovery phase. For me, it's reconnaissance, where you look at the landscape. What's going on? What does the business look like today? What do you want it to look like? What have they tried to do to get it there? What are the barriers from getting there, et cetera? And one of the things that I uncovered in the reconnaissance phase was the fact that Bob worked from his house. So the reason we put in a voice over IP phone system was when people would call the office to talk to Bob, they'd have to give him another phone number. And when they would call back sometimes, but sometimes not, and they were losing business. So they wanted to be able to just transfer calls directly to Bob. Great, we've got the technology. Check, that one passed. Maybe not. See, I failed to follow up with that question. When you want to get to the root of a problem, you need to ask a very important three-letter question. Why? If I had asked why was Bob working out of the house, I'd have learned something pretty darn important. I'd have learned that Bob doesn't get along with people. Bob is difficult. I think I already knew that one. That Bob was set in his ways. That's kind of important information. Okay, problem solved. No, not so fast. You see, the problem wasn't that I didn't know that. It was the problem, but it's not the real problem. Any ideas what the real problem was? No, it's that I didn't ask it. Why? Here's our second why. Why didn't I ask it? This is a much harder question to answer. I got to be candid, right? Because now I'm talking about me. Now I had to do deep soul searching. Ooh, you know what I found? I was afraid. I was afraid to ask the question. That didn't sit right with me. I don't like being afraid. I pride myself on courage, action in the face of fear. I didn't take action. I didn't ask why. That hit me kind of hard. But now I got to figure out why I was afraid. What's the first thing we learn as sales professionals? What's the first thing we're taught? 3 letters. ABC. Always be closing. Wait a second. I didn't ask why because it didn't advance the sale. One of my first sales managers said, never ask a question that it doesn't advance the sale. And in fact, why potentially could shut the sale down. No, that's verboten. Don't ask that question. And I realized that a problem that I had learned about in the Navy has now just crept up and bit me in the tail in civilian life. See, when we were learning to drop bombs and do air attack, discovered very quickly, you've got to focus on the right target. See, if I said go bomb that bridge or go to this bridge and drive there, you'll find it real easily from the ground. But at 5,000 feet, that bridge looks like every other bridge on the river, unless you study the target. What I had been taught was to attack the wrong bridge, closing the sale. See, closing the sale is about us, right? We do that for us. Whatever we focus on, we get. And that's not our job as salespeople. No gasp? Usually I get a gasp from that one. Our job as salespeople, as professionals, is to sell and be of service. See, our clients are coming to us, our prospects are coming to us because they have a problem and we have the solution. They think. They don't know that. They don't trust that off the bat. It's our job to uncover what the real problem is, and then if we can help, be of service. See, that's the second part of my accountability triangle, mindset, thinking about others. So now I realize I hadn't been thinking about them. Closing, selfish. Being of service, I don't want to say selfless, because really the economic agreement, when somebody buys something from you, is actually a win-win. See, if you purchase something from me and give me good hard-earned cash for that, that item is worth more to you than the money you give to me. It's a win. You get something of value that's greater than the cash you're giving up. Now, of course, as a supplier, that cash you give to me is worth more to me than the item I just sold to you. That's my profit. It's a true win-win. So when we think of selling from a place of service, we're thinking about everybody winning. All right. Now we know what the problem is. What do I do to fix it? Well, the voice of my last skipper, a guy by the name of George Lukauer, call sign Luke, popped into my head. You see, Luke was a quiet skipper. He wasn't like the ones you see in movies and TVs. He sat back and hardly got involved with anything. If you came up to him with a question, hey, skipper, what should we do about this? He'd look at us and say, Southern drawl, he was from Georgia. Well, just do the right thing. When you do the right thing, things happen right. Do the right thing. So I did. Picked up the phone, called the president of the company. Hey, it's Dave. I've got the Bob solution. Do you remember when we did the sales program process and I told you we had a 30-day unconditional money-back guarantee? We're coming up on 30 days. I think we need to pull the trigger on that. Let me pull the system out of the house. I'll put the old one back in. Bob will be happy. It'll be exactly the way it was. You won't have to hear about it anymore. I'll refund you that portion of the deal. We'll reprogram the system so you'll still be able to transfer calls. It won't be smooth and seamless like it was. It'll have to be a different process for your people to follow. But Bob will be happy. And that's what we did. I got to tell you, this was not a cheap solution. This cost me basically all my profit on this deal between all the time we spent trying to fix it and now this. But it was the right thing to do. I thought it would be the last I heard of him. No. 2 months later, phone rings. My receptionist answers it, transfers it to me. I look at the phone with dread. I pick it up. This is Dave. Uh-huh. Oh, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, sure, I'll give him a call. Thank you for thinking about us. It was the president of the company with a referral. The first of many. Do the right things. Do right things. Things will happen right. So, as you leave here today and go back to sell for your business, for yourself, for whomever, I want you to remember 2 things. 1, be of service. Don't worry about closing the sale. Think about being of service. And 2, do the right things. Thank you.
All right. Woo! When you do right things, things happen right. I love that. That's fun.